All right. Hi, everybody. Good morning from across California. Happy 2024. We
Good
are
morning.
back. We hope you had a nice break. We hope you've dusted off the cobwebs. We've got a lot to discuss as always. So the California Climate and Energy Collaborative team is really pleased to welcome you back for the 26th meeting and our first meeting of this year of the Local Energy Resources Network. And so it's been a minute since we've had a chance to talk. I'm going to just share, because we're all friends by now. I'm finishing up with COVID, which is keeping me from the hospital where my mom is currently having surgery, which I'm only mentioning because if I have to bail for some reason, if I get a call, my friend John Vandevort with the SEEK team is going to be taking over and walking us through the rest of the meeting. But I really appreciate you all being with me because I'm very happy to be distracted by some really important work right now. So let's move into it. As always, our goal for today is to provide actually an hour and 15 minutes of space designed to help local governments and those that work with them to learn about and hopefully even inform some of our available opportunities around the state to help you advance your energy and climate goals. You guys are crazy busy, so you hopefully come here and get a little download of the things you need to know about opportunities without having to go do all that work from scratch. And so today we have our normal standing agenda. So we're going to do our opportunity roundtable. Oh, you guys are being sweet in the chat. Thank you. And I have a little spotlight for you. A lot of what we're going to do today is actually at the end, we're going to be diving into some RFIs. So CEC's got 2 RFIs right now that we think are up our alley, something that you all will have something to say about. So we're going to save that conversation more towards the BPC workshop, but I'm going to prime you a little bit in a spotlight up front here. Our main dish of the day is our friend Jeffrey from the Tech Clean California program is going to be here to talk to us a little bit about that program and how to potentially work with those of you out there within communities. And of course, we've got our bonus breakout. And today would be a good day if you can hang around for that extra 15 minutes after 12 o'clock. We're going to just continue the discussions on these RFIs because the deadlines are coming quick and we want to see if we can maximize the time we have with you to get your input. Okay, so as always, don't stress. We're going to get the slides afterwards. We're going to be plopping links as we go, as we jam through a whole bunch of opportunities. So let's do it. Okay, so as always, we have our opportunity roundtable, and this is a chance for all of us to share what we know of what's going on. Sometimes we miss things, so help us fill a gap here or there. If you know of anything that could be of value to each other, assistance programs, events, those kinds of things. We're going to talk mostly about funding like I always do, and this is our little hyperlink cheat sheet where I highlight in yellow a few things that we haven't talked about before that I want to bring to your attention. One thing we sometimes do when there's an important update is talk about policy, because of course policy drives investment. And I just wanted to acknowledge, and some of you are probably out there with feelings about it, that the Ninth Circuit panel of judges denied the petition for an en banc rehearing of Berkeley's gas ordinance. This is probably not the best place for us to debrief on it. There are other venues to do that. I know a lot of you are having to, I don't know, reconfigure a strategy moving forward, but we have a lot to talk about even today about all the progress you all are making with respect to electrification. So let's keep at it. One of the funding opportunities I wanted to bring to your attention is from the CEC. That's the first one there highlighted. It's called Build Grid Asset Enhancements for Grid Reliability. You've got until February 20th to apply. This is something public agencies are eligible for. It's a CEC grant that's for up to $150 million. So they have $150 million, and it's for the purchase and installation of efficiency upgrades and capacity additions to existing bulk grid power generators in California that will serve as emergency supply for the state's electrical grid during extreme events. So the award amounts are 1 million to 25 million. And like I said, local governments, public agency, nonprofits, and private entities are eligible. It's kind of the theme of the month. I feel like grid, grid, grid. And I think my summary of it is sometimes we're eligible and sometimes we are not. And that's sort of the challenge when it comes to grid modernization. The role for some of us on the ground is sometimes unclear or sometimes not as big as we actually know it needs to be. So let's move it along. The next one here that you see highlighted in yellow is again from the CEC. This one's an EPIC grant. You guys know about the EPIC grant. It's CEC administers it, but it's ratepayer funded, and they're usually pretty significant. And a lot of times they are research, like R&D oriented. So this one's grid supportive transportation electrification. You have until March 29th to apply. All public and private entities are eligible, this time with the exception of local publicly owned electric utilities. There's a few different sort of groups of funding here, and they range from 1.5 million to 4 million in eligible funding. And so the purpose of it, though, is to fund technology demonstration and deployment projects that support EPIC investment plan. And it's supposed to be increasing the value of distributed energy resources to customers in the grid. So it's falling under EPIC 4's Transportation Electrification Initiative, and the grant period would be 3 years. I know a lot of you out there are trying to figure out transportation electrification. So if you're interested in doing, EPIC is always a little bit like commercialization or pre-commercialization. So if you want to be on the leading edge, this is a good one for you. Moving along, and I hope you all really are putting extra stuff in the chat that we may not be aware of. Another one from the CEC. CEC is busy, and we're talking a lot about the CEC today. This one's called Charging Infrastructure for Government Fleets. A little bit longer of a window here, out until April 5th. There's up to $30 million here in grant funds for projects that will provide electric vehicle charging infrastructure for light duty government fleets. And so it's trying to help you all support your, electrification of government fleets, and become more, have more readily accessible EV charging infrastructure dedicated for that. And hopefully helping you support your sustainability and climate action goals and reduce vehicle emissions in disadvantaged or low-income communities. And another one from the CEC that actually, I just realized all the funding I wanted to talk about is from the CEC. They need a coffee over there with all of these solicitations they've been able to get out right during the holidays. So the next one is energy storage innovations to support grid reliability. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, that one. Okay, let me clarify. It's if we're now down to input. So this one is a draft solicitation concept. So basically they're giving you a peek at their draft solicitation on this brand new program, and they want your comment on it. So this is an input opportunity. It's due January 16th. I'm not going to be able to pull together comments on it on our behalf, but some of you who are really interested in storage may have something to say about this. It's intended to enable more strategic and high-value implementation of energy storage in transmission, distribution, and customer domains to support grid reliability and achievement of clean energy policy goals connected to those in SB 100, if you're following that. The good thing about this is that it's open to all public and private entities. So we like seeing where you all are eligible to do this work. And that kind of leads us to our next subject, which is the next one under input here. This is one of 2 RFIs that I want to talk about towards the end of this meeting. And so those next 2 highlighted pieces, I actually have spotlight on. So we're actually just gonna go to that in just a second. Let me say one more thing, which is on this page, and that's the last highlighted thing. That's from CARB. We've been in touch with CARB, and some of you that are following the climate pollution reduction grant out of the EPA may have even heard from CARB. They were out there soliciting projects to potentially include into their implementation phase grant. They also have an update for us. They want us to be aware that they are going to have public workshops, at least one public workshop, either in late January or early February, where they're going to be sharing their draft priority climate action plan. So if you're following that, that's the first phase, right? The planning phase. You're supposed to develop this PCAP. And so this is one's going to cover the whole state. I think you guys are going to have a big interest in seeing what the state's got to say about its priority climate actions. And that theoretically is supposed to inform their implementation and how they use the implementation grants. But those of you in the know that that timing was super weird. So I hope when we find out at a specific date and we have more information, we'll get it out to you. Okay, let's go to this spotlight. All right, opportunity spotlight. So there's, like I said, two. Somebody's asking homes RFI. I will get to that one, Jan. So thank you for that. The first one of the CEC's RFIs I wanted to talk about is due January 19th. This one is the Community Energy Resilience Investment program, brand new. You might remember our friends at the Climate Center pitching some legislation called the Community Energy Resilience Act. And then came along, a bunch of federal funding. This one is 401(01)D, and it's really a grid resilience formula grant intended to go to the state. Now the state has it, and the state has to figure out exactly what they want to do with it. But they are stuck with the statute and the guidelines that came from the DOE. So this one's an interesting one for us to comment on. And really my thoughts on looking at it is community energy resilience investment program sounds so promising. And then you read the details and it looks like, the folks on this call largely are not eligible. So that's what you see there on the right is the folks that are eligible are considered either large or small entities that are selling power. And so it's grid operators and also fuel suppliers. So I have some, I'm interested to see folks that are CCAs or munis, if they are eligible. We have a lot, a little bit to talk about on this one. We want your input. And I think maybe even this is an opportunity to communicate through this RFI to the CEC that while they might not have had a chance to help us, the folks on the ground that are doing community energy resilience that aren't grid operators, we need another opportunity. We need other opportunities to do that kind of pre-construction and construction work. But I want you to gel on it, open up the link, look at this RFI or the solicitation, and we're going to talk about it at the end of the meeting. The next one I want you to open up is the CEC Homes RFI. And so this one is a Inflation Reduction Act funded program, right? They actually got $600 million in total. This is one part of that federal infusion of dollars into sort of energy efficiency and retrofit and electrification home programming, like basically rebates. And so it's inviting right now, it's going to RFI open because it wants input on this very small summary of a program concept that they've provided that will be their design and how they deploy $292 million in funds for home energy retrofits. And so basically their goal is to install 6 million heat pumps by 2030. And they're going to try to do that by incorporating or braiding this homes funding in together with the Equitable Building Decarbonization direct install program. So you may have heard them talk about that program over the course of the last year. It's a California legislated funded program. And so they're trying to basically potentially merge these things through. They aren't sure if they're going to get DOE's approval to do that, but that's what they are hoping to apply for. They want our thoughts. How would that work? Do you like that idea? Braiding those two things together, and if not, or say they aren't successful at that pitch, what other program designs do you want to see? So that's kind of the RFI. Open it up if that's something you're really interested in, and we're going to have a chance at the end of this meeting to talk it out. On both of these RFIs, I've got some friends here that are really in deep on both of these topics that are going to help us start to sort our thoughts out about it. So stick with us. And feel free to throw other thoughts in the chat while you're thinking of it. Okay, so that's the Opportunity Roundtable and a couple of spotlights. Now I'm really pleased to be introducing our featured guest of the day, Jeffrey Lang. He is the Senior Manager for the Energy Efficiency Department of Energy Solutions, and they are the ones that are administering the Tech Clean California program, which he's here to talk to us about today. He's going to present. I hope you will add your questions to the chat as you have them and that while you're listening. After he's done, he'll take some questions, and then he has a question for you. He'd like your feedback as well. So Jeffrey, thanks so much for being here. I'll hand it to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angie. Thank you for having me today. As Angie mentioned, I am with Energy Solutions, which implements the Tech Clean California program. But many of you also know me from not too long ago as the Bay Rent Single Family Program Manager. And so I think what's great, I can sort of provide both perspectives a little bit, information about tech, but also, having been on the local government side, working closely with tech and knowing what values there are that we can help each other as well as provide data to each other. There's a lot of great opportunities for collaboration. I will also say this is sort of a continuation of Lillian Ross, my colleague, presented in November. So if some of this sounds familiar, I think she gave a 5-minute spotlight. So I'll be just expanding a little bit more on that and hopefully, try to get enough information to you guys about what tech is that we can have more of a conversation and discussion about, where there's those opportunities for collaboration. So yeah, we can move on to the next slide. So for those who aren't aware, Tech Clean California is it's really a market transformation program for heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. And so it started, it launched in 2021, and throughout kind of these last couple of years, it's done a lot, focused a lot on, or trying to create the infrastructure for heat pumps. So, having run an energy efficiency program, it's a little different in that, with a lot of the other programs out there, there's a need to account for savings and reaching certain goals. And tech is a little different in that the primary objective is to get to market transformation. So it's not about reaching a certain number of installations, but how we're looking at it is at the end of this program, are we putting California in a better place to have heat pumps be kind of get to market adoption, and also doing that equitably. And I will talk a little bit more, especially on the equity side, but that means that our activities are things like trying to streamline permitting, trying to get enough data so that we can figure out which areas we should be focusing on, trying to build the contractor base. So that's really what we're looking at, not just the number of incentives that are out there. What's great is we can take a more holistic approach on this, and so that these incentives are offered statewide. So it doesn't even necessarily, it doesn't matter which utility you are part of, or even what the previous heating or water heating source was. We're able to offer incentives for all of the state. And what's great is we're about to receive $95 million in new funding from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund to continue these market transformation activities for the next couple of years. All this is in service of what Angie mentioned, is the goal to get to 6 million heat pumps installed by 2030. And so to date, sorry, I need to pull up my statistics here. But to date, I checked yesterday, and so far since 2021, we've installed or 2022, there's been 3,241 heat pump water heaters installed and 18,195 heat pump HVAC systems installed. So, we're obviously not getting to 6 million all with this particular program. We're trying to pave the path to there. But we're starting to make headway. And, again, as part of that, we're trying to also have these equity goals of 50% of that funding going to low income or disadvantaged communities. So next slide. So what's great about all this, the projects that have been completed, over 20,000 projects, is we have a lot of data. And I think, especially coming from the local government perspective, data really, having this data is really great for making policy decisions and strategy decisions. So we have data, obviously, from the applications that we receive. So information about equipment, installation costs, and I'll pull up, our dashboard in a little bit just to show you what kind of information we have. But we also have programs from partners, so from CCAs, from RENs. We have information from evaluators, more of the qualitative information as well as the quantitative information. What's exciting is we're also partnering with Recurve to be able to pull in meter-based consumption data. So not only can we just guess at what, no longer do we have to just guess at what the savings are, but we can actually look, as more of these projects have been installed for longer, we can go back and look at the bill impacts, as well as the GHG impacts, as well as, and we're collaborating with a wide array of industry market actors. So we have data from kind of their perspective, the distributors, manufacturers on sales and price. So what this leads to, if you can go to the next slide, is here's, there's a great data webinar recording we have on our website, which you can get some, get more of a longer explanation of these, but just wanted to pull out some of the really exciting data that we were able, we've been able to share. So this is, just looking at heat pumps for HVAC, and we can, by breaking down kind of what are the different quartiles of users, we can see that, for the, first three quartiles, we're actually, for heat pumps, sometimes increasing, like keeping it pretty neutral, or even sometimes increasing energy use, especially for people who haven't had AC. But we can now isolate that fourth quartile, where that has tremendous amounts of savings, especially in the peak period. So just explaining this graph a little bit, the higher numbers are the amount of savings. So that fourth quartile is saving average of close to, getting close to 1 kilowatt hour during that peak period time. So being able to see, and isolate which geographic areas and what existing heating sources and cooling sources were before, we can now determine who are going to be helping the grid at the most crucial times, and how we can start focusing on those customers. Next one. We also have a lot of cost data, and so we've been able to isolate, for certain, what are some of the major factors that contribute to cost of these systems. So as you can see, average age of homes, the higher the SEER ratio, SEER value, how long it takes to do installations. So you can take a look and see, with, for example, that first one, for every 10 years added to the average home age in the tract, the project cost increases by $826. And so based on that, that data, that may have huge implications as to who are the people we look to do outreach to. I wanted to also point out this last one here on the bottom, the number of tech contractors serving a county. This is somewhat intuitive. The more contractors you have in a particular county, the more you can, the more competition, the price gets driven down a little bit. But it's great to actually see the data supporting that, and also by how much. So going from 10 to 100 contractors, that average cost is decreasing by over $1,000. Next. And so, as I mentioned, we will continue to be collecting, the meter-based data and be able to determine greenhouse gas emissions impacts, bill impacts as well, which are especially important as we're looking to work with equity priority communities. We can now better, we will have more and more data surrounding, hopefully all these data points can help inform policy and strategy for outreach going into the future. So knowing, as in the past, having worked for Stop Waste, local public agency, as well as BayREN, knowing that data is always hard to get, wanted to first of all say that we have some of this data, it's public information. And just really briefly, I think, John, could I just share my screen? Oops, oh shoot, I think I lost the, okay. So just so this is on our public reporting, and just to confirm, can people see my screen? Okay, I see a couple of thumbs up. So this is Tech Clean California, and if you go to the public data visualization tab, so that's under public data, public project data visualization, you can see like county by county how many installs. You can isolate it to heat pump water heaters. You can do heat pump HVAC. You can come up to the top here and look at the cost details around, for example, the 2,475 heat pump water heater projects. You can see great visualization as to how those are broken out. Especially, I thought this one was really interesting. You can even see graphs of the distribution of projects, and you can filter by many different inputs. So just wanted to show that you can also even go in and download some of that data so that you can manipulate it yourself and look more closely at the cities and counties you serve. I'll say, generally this map is on the county level, and I know many cities would like to receive information, especially for things like climate action plan, and feel free to contact me if you're looking for that information. That's something that I have access to. So I'll stop my share, and John, if you want to continue on. I realize I'm going a little over, so I'm going to go a little quicker now. Next, please. So I wanted to, I started with the tech program in August, and my focus has been on equity, and wanted to say, as I mentioned, there's a goal to really focus on equity within tech. And so there's 3 things that I wanted to mention that we're working on, and kind of briefly go into them as a way to start the conversation. First of all, we're trying to work within the existing income qualified programs. So ESA, if you're familiar with that energy savings assistance program with each of the utilities, trying to incorporate heat pumps and heat pump water heaters into those programs through helping to pay for remediation costs. We're starting a pilot in the PG&E territory to even help pay some, I said, pay the remediation costs, and also provide a bill guarantee so that people aren't going to, come back and get a new heat pump or heat pump water heater and then find out they have to pay a higher monthly cost. So that's one thing that we're working on. Happy to talk individually more about that. But two of the other aspects is we're working hard to provide more workforce education and training to equity priority communities. We know that, especially if we're going to reach 6 million heat pumps by 2030, there's going to be a lot of business opportunities. So making sure we reach out to disadvantaged communities, limited English proficiency communities, making sure that education and training is going to them, that they're in line to take advantage of this wave of opportunity. And another one is to really reach out to CBOs and other community organizations to help get that word out, because we know that it's it's hard, especially for a statewide program. It's hard for us to get the word out to all these different communities that may have different ways, different levels of trust, especially in a organization they may not have heard before. So we're really trying to focus on bringing in community organizations to help get the word out. Next. So I kind of mentioned these, so I'm going to skip past that. Next. And so wanted to mention that, we have a couple different definitions of equity. I did want to mention, for some of these additional programs, where we have a equity kicker for some of our rebates. These are what our equity definition is. And next slide. And especially for our recently relaunched heat pump water heater initiative, that, if you look at that second line there for equity for residential, that can mean up to $10,000 for a heat pump water heater install, which includes electric panel upgrade if necessary. So for a lot of people, that can cover a fair amount of that install. I know that based on the average cost of install in the Bay Area territory, that's basically covers more than a majority of those costs for most people. So that's one opportunity to help get the word out that I want to mention. Next. Like I mentioned, we've already done a lot of on workforce education and training, but I think we can do more. We have this great program called Learn and Earn, where if people sign up with tech, they can get a free heat pump water heater unit for themselves that they can put in their own home so that they can learn from personal experience. 12% of those have gone to DAC areas. I would love to see that go up. We have also, knowing that we need to get these units into, getting community colleges and training facilities trained on them, where we have a lot of units we can donate. So again, if there's workforce development efforts, please let us know, because we'd like to get them connected. And we have trainings. We're always looking to organize more trainings. And so especially, knowing that a lot of the cities and counties have a lot of great connection with contractors, we would love to collaborate with you on that training. Next. I will mention we've done some community engagement, mainly through our Quick Start grants. And I'm not going to mention those. In fact, some of you are involved with some of these. But I think what I wanted to highlight is there's actually CPUC has a grant up to $500,000 for CBOs to participate in Tech SCHIP, which is what we are branding as Tech for Water Heaters, and microgrid incentive program, to be part of to build capacity and to help us strategize and conduct the marketing and outreach that we need. So wanted to mention that. Next, please. Just summarizing kind of what are the opportunities for collaboration. As I mentioned, I know, we obviously have a focus on equity, and I know that many of the cities and counties and local governments are also focused on equity. So This is a couple of items where I think there's some opportunities. First of all, that income qualified program outreach for heat pump water heaters, but also our ESA program collaboration. Language access. This is really a topic close to my heart because I grew up in a community that did not primarily speak English, and I think we need to definitely reach out more, or else those communities get left behind, especially on these opportunities. So I would love to collaborate on any efforts to reach out in different languages. Workforce development, as I mentioned, I think that's one of the biggest equity opportunities. There's a chance to not just make sure that these communities receive the heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, but that they are able to make careers and long-lasting generational wealth out of this. So would love to collaborate with any of you on making sure we reach out to the right people. Financing. Just wanted to shout out that Kelly from Go Green Home is here, and Tech works with Go Green Home to provide more accessible financing, and as well as working with some of the CCAs on figuring out ways to put that financing on bill. Other outreach efforts, I'll just fly through these really quickly. Having worked with many cities and counties, your name on the letterhead makes a huge difference in reaching out to contractors, homeowners, CBOs. A lot of them may not be familiar with energy solutions, but they are familiar with you. And so hopefully hoping to be able to collaborate with you, especially on this grant that I mentioned, where we can finally give, we can give a lot of funding to help these CBOs staff up and be able to do the work and be fairly compensated for that. As well as, again, mentioning workforce development. As I mentioned, we have great data, wanting to, be able to share that for your climate action plans, but also wanting to know if there's any data that you have that can help us figure out. One thing I did at BayREN was figure out, work with individual cities to figure out who has submitted permits for heat pump water heaters or water heaters in general, and be able to reach out to them and say, hey, we know you've done work in the city. Here's the program, here's rebates, here's workshops that we're holding to help you understand what are the rebates and the regulatory things that are coming up in the future. So I think that's it. If you go to, this is our website. I would also encourage you to sign up for the listserv. We're actually going to be sending out an email today at 12. If you can sign up before then, you might get it. But that announces details about our equity incentive that for heat pump water heaters that I just mentioned, and how people can get qualified for it. So encourage you to sign up for that. Go to our website, look up the reports and the data, so that we can figure out ways that we can work together. And I think, that's Q&A. Sorry, I went a little over, Angie.
Right. Thank you, Jeffrey. Super interesting about the data. I can see a lot of value to that for local governments and for policy, even just what we were talking about with the HOMES program, or programs that will come in the future, having better data to base savings on and potentially simplifying programs because of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's always nice to see one of our old local regional folks go scale up a bit. Okay, so we've got a few questions in the chat. Let's take those. And let's see. We've got a comment here just talking about kind of bringing up the approach, piecemeal approach versus doing everything more comprehensively. What is that? How does tech consider that? It sounds like you are already talking about braiding and connecting with other programs.
Yes, definitely. We like with several other program implementers, we've worked with CCAs, especially the CCCE. We kind of braided those for the Central Coast, braided programs together. When I was at Bayron, we braided those together to make it simpler for the contractors. So knowing that at the end of the day, it's contractors who are going to have to sell this, and so we have a contractor kind of call center who helps all of our contractors figure out all these different programs. And so the more opportunity we have to simplify it and work with all of the different implementers, the better it is for everyone along the line.
Another question here, is the new funding for HP water heaters only or HVAC too?
So there's, for us, it's we branded it all tech to make it simpler rather than having people remember tech versus SCHIP. But our heat pump water heater funding is through SCHIP, Self-Generation Incentive Program, and so we're trying to keep it like kind of on the back end so people don't have to know. We just have tech for HVAC and tech for water heaters. So they have their different budgets. I forgot, SCHIP is like 80 million or so, and tech, the main tech funding is this 95 million that we'll start on in addition to past funding.
Okay, and Alice is asking, how would you plan to increase the percent of these benefits to DACs?
So we are committed, I think 40% of our spend is for equity priority communities. And so I think, it's a little difficult. You'll see in our website, you can track our equity spending. A lot of that goes to multifamily because, we work with a lot of affordable housing. And so a lot of that equity spend is within the multifamily realm. And then some of it is kind of in these pilots where we're working with ESA. But we're also, for me, I'm trying to also work on, this community engagement so that we are starting to see more of like the general spend around DACs. And that's something that we could definitely use a lot of help with.
Yeah, it sounds like that's one of your major collaboration opportunities. You're trying to reach those communities that have been hard to reach, which is, residential is hard and hard to reach. Residential and hard to reach is really, really hard. So it looks like you're looking for partners, and you may even have some community scale grants if needed. Okay.
Yes.
So some other comments in here. Kelly, thank you. She's with Go Green Financing. She provided her link. It sounds like you guys are already collaborating. And Pete is asking, is there a publicly accessible list of contractors who've participated in Tech by County? You didn't show us that part yet.
I didn't. There is, if you, I'm not going to try to share my screen again, but if you go to Tech Clean California and you go to, there's contractor data. Are more, this is more of our public reporting site, but if you go to Switches On, you can see the contractors, you can sort them by, county and language and services they offered. So between those two sources, you should be able to find a lot of that data. But again, if you're looking for something specific, happy to be find that for you. And
it looks like Kelly was nice enough to put the link directly to that in the chat for everyone. So you can go find your contractors. Everybody's looking for those. All right, I'm scanning. I think there are more questions. I know we've kind of run low on time. And Jeffrey, how do you want to handle it? We don't have too much time for the question you wanted to pose. I would invite you two to hang around after and answer some of these other questions in the chat. But do you want to ask your question to the audience and we'll take just a few minutes for it? Sure. And I think it'll be just a general one, and we can I'll put my contact information in the chat because I think a lot of this general question is probably better to be answered, county by county or city by city. But just where are the places that we can collaborate? Like what's the data that we can provide to you to help inform your policies, but also your strategies, and how can we do that together? Because I think,
we're covering a lot of territory, and we have a pretty good sized team at Energy Solutions, but that's there's I think 57 counties, right? So it's a lot of area to cover, and we can't do it ourselves. So and I know I've already talked to several people, thanks coming out of Lillian's presentation in November, but I encourage everyone to message me and start that conversation of how we can help each other.
Now I want to invite anybody who wants to comment on Jeffrey's question, talking about collaboration or just what might you need from this program. Just raise your hand if you'd like to say something, or anybody in the, if you put something in the chat, you want to make sure it gets raised. You got a couple of minutes here to wrap up this conversation. All right, well, Jeffrey put his email address there. I'm sure he'd be very happy if you want to talk more about collaborating or just to answer any of your questions. Somebody's asking one more question here that might be worth answering quickly.
Okay.
It's what is the best resource to direct contractors towards for support in participating, both for contractors already enrolled and contractors trying to enroll? That's a good question.
Yes, and Lillian put the answer right away. Thank you,
Oh,
Lillian.
there we go.
There's a tech info page, email, and a tech contractor email.
Okay.
And I will go through and try to answer as many of these as I can in the chat.
Perfect. Well, Jeffrey, thanks again for bringing this program to our attention. We've heard a lot of good things about it. Maybe someday you'll come back and tell us more about, coverage. That's what I'm interested in. I want to see how it's going, who's participating, where are the gaps, where do you need more help?
Yes.
I like maps. We'll have you back someday, but it's actually great that you're here because this whole, we're about to turn the conversation to these RFIs, and maybe we can go ahead and pull up the next slide. So maybe Jeffrey, hang around because we're going to end up talking more about that Homes program, and I'm sure you guys are tracking it too. And it's very on point with this, the conversation around piecemeal versus comprehensive, and how do we all work together, and how do we streamline things, and how do we get contractors to be able to actually sell projects? So stick around. Okay, so at the end of all our meetings, we usually do this little BPC workshop where we talk about something. This time I wanted to bring one thing to your attention, and then we're going to dive into these RFIs. You've probably already heard that our 15th annual Seek Forum is already in development. It's going to be, oh my gosh, what's the date again, John? June. He's looking it up right on the spot.
Couldn't unmute. 25th and 26th, I believe.
Okay. And so put the save the date on your calendar, but also the call for session proposals is now open. And so we're looking for you to submit. So we have some really great content when we come together in June. So hopefully, Tila, maybe you can drop that link in the chat as well, and folks can make sure that they apply by February 14th. Okay, so back to these RFIs. We don't have a ton of time to do like really deep, input, but we're tinkering around with the idea of submitting comments from Seek on behalf of our network, and we'd really like to hear your thoughts. So we just have a little time here to do that. Maybe what would be best, we're going to tackle the CEC's Community Energy Resilience Investment Program RFI first. I think it's slightly simpler. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time on the homes. We're going to do as much as we can before noon. So we're going to do short batches right here. And then we're going to stick around for the extra bonus breakout for 15 minutes. I want to invite everybody to join us on Jamboard. So I think Tila's going to drop that link as well. And you can open that up. That's where you can track your comments as we're talking. I would say, let's go back to the slide that talked about community energy resilience investment. And if everybody can kind of go to the chat and open up the Jamboard, then you can see folks starting to input their thoughts. We have a couple of questions for you on this one. Hopefully you had a chance to pop it open during this call, But here, you know, that's the summary. You can see a little bit about who's eligible and what activities are eligible. And so really the questions here are pretty basic because they don't have prescribed questions. They're just saying, here's our solicitation. Tell us what you think. And so, you know, our question to you would be, how would you suggest improving or clarifying the solicitation to ensure that eligible applicants of this program deliver the greatest community energy resilience, emission reduction, equity, affordability, and community benefits for your community? And then what else? What else do you want CEC to know? And so, you know, keep in mind here that the eligibility for applicants is probably not what we would have liked to have seen. And that it might be rooted in DOE guidance. So we won't be too hard on CEC about that. We'll probably voice that we wish it was different. Not that there's much that they can do about it, but I do want to hand it off to the Climate Center, folks that are here, if they want to say a few words up here first, just to wet our whistle.
Thank you, Angie, and good morning, everyone. My name is Pamela Martinez. I am the Community Energy Resilience Project Manager with the Climate Center. My colleague Kirk could not be on, but my colleague Shiriel is on with me. We will be submitting comments. As Angie mentioned, the title to this RFI is very misleading. So I wanted to just run through a couple of the recommendations that we will be making through our comments. I don't want to take up a whole lot of time. I know we're down to the last 8 minutes here. Essentially, we want to recommend that the Commission includes community choice aggregation agencies as an eligible entity. As of right now, there is the language in the RFI for others to go ahead and submit an interest. Essentially, what we want to do is make sure that CCAs don't have to submit a DOE eligible entity request form, right? We want to make it easier for CCAs. We will be recommending that we remove the transmission owners and operators as eligible entities such that they would fall under the category of any other relevant entity. So essentially having the transmission owners and operators be the ones to submit the eligible entity request form. I'm going to go through pretty quickly on these. Exclude transmission distribution infrastructure projects as eligible activities, given that the low resilience ROI possible such upstream efforts due to diminishing resilience returns with increasing distance between generation and load. We'll also be making a recommendation on reducing project funding thresholds to ensure a broad and diverse distribution of SERI solutions and essentially maximize and more evenly distribute projects with LSC service territories located throughout California. Reformulate the resilience impact score into a comprehensive holistic scoring formula. As of right now, we see that the scoring formula focuses on that it will focus on potential risks of power outage, which would include heat, wildfire, flooding, sea level rise, mudslides, debris flows, earthquakes, public safety, power shutoffs, etc. And the last recommendation here is align SERI common program objectives to incorporate the bottom-up concept of max DG pathways that maximizes the development of distributed generation on built environments located close to the load, really the only source of true energy resilience. So I will stop there and see if there are any questions in the chat that we could potentially answer here.
Pamela, that was great and concise and a lot. And so you are going to have a draft comment letter for the RFI, and you're going to circulate it a little bit, and you're maybe interested in reviewing and signing on, right? So I'm curious what folks think. You know, if anybody wants to raise their hand, we'll take one more speaker here. Thoughts on what Pamela had to say, how do we feel, and anything else. I want folks to feel really comfortable adding a post-it here on the Jamboard. I want to hear anything you're thinking about, because either we'll probably sign on as long as we can come to agreements and we think this is the right approach, or we might submit our own comments. I see some comments here. Will eligible applicants be required to apply with regional CBOs in order to answer the call community? Okay, so that's a clarification. Yeah, and think about that. What else do you need clarified? I heard Pamela talk a little bit about CCAs. I don't know, Pamela, do you think that that actually needs to be further clarified in this solicitation that CCAs are eligible?
In my opinion, after attending the webinar in, I believe it was September of 2023, I think it would be helpful to make it listed explicitly. Sharielle and I went back and forth on this a little bit internally as if this would not be necessary. But I think if we're seeing other eligible entities listed here, I think it would be something that we would really want to push forward to and make it really clear for others. You know, if right now it's a question that others have, I can't imagine, you know, down the line, what other confusion that might cause. So yeah, we do want to list it explicitly there.
Okay. I see a yes in the chat. Thanks, Pamela. Yes, and thanks for the Climate Center for all the leadership on this whole issue that you continue to provide. And we're going to talk more offline. If I have something, a draft that I can share with you all, I will. But otherwise, you will have access to this Jamboard. You can continue to send us thoughts or just email me if you feel like there's something that needs to be said. Okay. Let's move now to the other RFI. So if you can just go next to the next one. So back to homes, right? So this is the residential rebate program, basically. So this is a little bit about it. We can also maybe drop the link back in the chat here. And then we'll go over to the Jamboard where we have a few questions for you. So if you scroll over, we're on board 2. So the home efficiency rebates, the homes program. Basically, we want to know, are you on board with CEC's approach? And if so, how would you envision braiding it effectively with your current residential efforts and other programs that you're familiar with and aware of and think are great and need to be threaded through? And then if not, and you know, maybe they just need to consider other options too if they don't get approved. What other program design would you want to propose? The RFI itself has a lot more detailed questions, and you are very welcome to submit your own comments or to join me. Let me know that you're really interested, because we're going to be going into the weeds on this one pretty deep, and welcome you to participate in a deeper level than just today. With that, I want to hand it off. I think Craig Perkins is here. And if he is, I want to invite him to unmute and kick us off on this conversation, because he and I had a great congestion yesterday. He has lots of good thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Angie. Real quick. This is one of those questions which, to me, based on sort of our history and experience with energy retrofit programs, seems like a no-brainer. The challenge confronting the Equitable Building Decarbonization Program is immense in terms of deeper and broader participation in electrification retrofits. And it just seems logical that it would be a time to bring all of the financial resources available and put them on the table in the same bucket, as opposed to fragmenting them in dissipating and diminishing the overall impact. A professor of mine many years ago once said, if you want to end up with a boiled egg, don't scramble it first. And so this is an opportunity for the state to recognize that the more that we can consolidate these financial resources into unified program offers to simplify for the customer, as well as increase the attractiveness of the electrification efforts for income eligible households at no cost through direct install. That's really, in my thinking, the only way that we're going to greatly expand and mobilize the participation levels that are going to be necessary to meet these program goals. So this is what the CEC is pondering right now, and the meeting next week, which Angie has organized around the CEC EBD funding, will be an opportunity to dive a little bit more into the weeds and specify, you know, what's the best advice to the CEC at this point to make sure these programs are successful and unified, as opposed to disappointing and fragmented. That's it.
Thank you, Craig. And it's noon, so those of you that need to go should totally go, and we will see you next month. But I hope many of you can stick around, especially those of you that are really trying to crack this code on residential efficiency and electrification. I do want to mention that we have somebody from CEC. Miriam is here, and Miriam, I would be very happy if you want to speak up and do any clarifications that you would like here.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks, everybody. Hello, and thank you for letting me jump in. So I just wanted to be clear on the CEC's proposed approach with these funds is that we are asking DOE because, and just to back up for a second, so there are formula funds that have been allocated to California, $292 million for home efficiency, which we call the HOMES program. But California still needs to go through an application process. We still need to submit to DOE a whole bunch of budget justifications, narrative templates, various plans, how we will utilize the money in line with all of their guidance. And so our plan is to propose to DOE that we take the $292 million and we braid it, incorporate it, fold it, there's different terms depending on how exactly it's done, into the Equitable Building Decarbonization Direct Install Program that CEC will be administering, which guidelines were just adopted in October. And I think there was a lot of input from folks on this call and the development of those guidelines. So if we did that, I just want to be clear, then the Equitable Building Decarbonization Program would become a, $680 million minus whatever gets cut as part of the state's budget shortfall. I'm sure folks are following that, right? So there'll be resources, unfortunately, potentially taken away from the Equitable Building Decarb plus the homes money into that program. So just wanted to slight clarification on, I think what I saw on the Jamboard is that we're not proposing to braid with a whole bunch of different local programs. We're proposing to braid with one. To the extent that local programs end up being integrated or braiding or coordinating with the direct install program, then there's like this kind of like affiliation, right, of homes funding. So the question that we're putting out there is sort of what are the best practices for braiding federal and state funding? And then if we cannot do this, because DOE doesn't let us, which we think they're going to let us, but if we cannot do this for feasibility reasons, what should we do instead? That's what we're asking folks. Of course, you are welcome to comment on any aspect. You're welcome to say, we don't agree with the braiding, and we think you should do, this other thing instead. The RFI is open to any sort of comments, but the specific questions that we're posing are kind of best practices for braiding. And then if we cannot, what should we do instead? And happy to take any questions, or Angie, happy to join one of the breakouts if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think we're going to stick together on it and probably stick with this program. And I think we're getting some comments in the chat. I want to make sure folks, I would actually say, raise your hand.